Hello everybody! TheFlamingShark back with another video, and today, not a blind commentary or a blind reaction or whatever, but today is actually a review of the first season of Steven Universe. Now, I will be keeping this short. You guys will obviously see in the timeline below this video how short or long, whatever, how long this video is, but I'm gonna keep this very short. I'm calling it a review, but it isn't really like a formal review. I was gonna, write a couple notes to keep myself on track, but I do really want to keep this nice and short. So, the first thing I'm gonna say is my general thoughts on Steven Universe so far. Fantastic. The show has gotten off to an amazing start through the first 52 episodes through the first season, and has really impressed me in ways that even some of my favorite shows in recent memory haven't. Steven Universe has easily become one of my favorite shows in a long time, and might even be my favorite ongoing show, but I am going to reserve judgment until I watch the second season for some of that. And that is another reason why this review might be kind of short, is because I do want to reserve some judgments until I finish the second season, until I watch the second season. One of the things I love about this show, and this is something that every great show has, is character development. The character development in Steven Universe so far has been amazing. Seeing how Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl have really developed as characters, really honestly have grown as characters and show not always growth, but also showing the multiple dimensions of their character that might otherwise not be seen in the first few episodes. And over time, you do really get a sense of growing on that, and I think there's still a lot, and I mean a lot of development on all three of them still to go. However, Steven is on a whole nother level. The character growth of Steven over the course of the season 1 of Steven Universe was absolutely incredible. And seeing a character who honestly was, just a main protagonist, I wasn't a huge fan of him initially, admittedly, become one of my favorite protagonists in a very long time, and maybe even my favorite character in this series. Which is very rare, because I almost never like the protagonist the most. But, I love, I'm not saying he is, Pearl might be, Amethyst might be, I don't know, it's a tough call, but, Steven very well could be, just because his development has been so fantastic over the course of the series. Another thing that I really have enjoyed is, the series, while not necessarily always focusing on one overarching story at this point, it has really kept a distinct level of continuity above that of most Western cartoons, most Western animated shows. While, yes, it does have its own closed stories within the context of an episode in most cases, it does make sure not only to just have simple callbacks, but actually connect episodes from maybe, early in the season to stuff way in advance, and just make stuff that wasn't originally relevant feel more relevant to the overarching scheme of the development of the characters and the overall story of the series, which is something that is greatly appreciated and always makes for a cool little moment anytime such a thing happens in the series. And the series is abundant with such things. The entire concept of gems and fusion is another, plus to the show. I think it's a very unique way to, create more powerful adversaries and more powerful, I guess you could say, heroes as well. It's an interesting concept, and it's been described in ways that actually can be considered similar to a relationship, which gets into something involving Season 1 that I actually will not be covering, because I have very little information on that from having only seen Season 1, and it only comes up in the Season 1 finale. But the overall idea of the show, and how the characters, fuse together, and how they coexist as a fusion, the experience of a fusion, which I'm sure you guys get that reference, is very interesting, and leads to a lot of interesting talking points that I could get into, but like I said, I want to keep this review nice and quick. There's really very few, if any, cons I have to say about this show. One of the only cons I will say is it does get off to a slightly slow start, and some of the early animation is a little awkward. However, as has been explained to me in the past, some of the animators in the early on weren't doing that well and were subsequently let go for better animators who were able to smoothen it out and make it have a more natural, flowing feel to it. And really does make you feel like you're watching a top quality animation, which I would consider Steven Universe to be, especially in the later half of Season 1 in particular. The voice acting for this show is very interesting, very good. You know, Steven has an interesting voice that, you know, while, isn't exactly my favorite voice in the world, it's very well done. And really all the characters have interesting voices. Garnet being the voice that for a long time I wasn't a fan of because I felt like, and while it did a good job of fitting to the character, it just didn't feel that natural in a way. But it's really grown on me and I really have come to respect it. The singing in the show is absolutely fantastic and goes with the voice actors and actresses. Greg, Steven, Garnet, Amethyst, Pearl, etc. All great VAs in multiple aspects, and I like the depth to their voice acting that is heard in this series. But I digress, that's not a big detail for some people, and I will move on. Another thing I like is the general world building that, Rebecca's went through with this series, really creating the world of Steven Universe, the world of Beach City, and more generally the world of Steven Universe in the most literal sense, and even beyond into, outer space a little bit. We haven't really explored that at this point, but I'm sure at some point we will get a little more exploration of that stuff. Really cool, and I really like the ideas of the world that were explored already and that are still going to be explored in future plots, whether in Season 2 or beyond. So those cover most of the general ones. If I want to, I might get into anything specific. Maybe, I think that's a general idea, that I really just like this show from every aspect. I don't think this show has any particular flaws, other than, like I said, a slow start. This show is victim to a slow start. I feel like a lot of shows are victims to slow starts, and it is just the way of how TV shows are, in many cases. Not in all cases, but in many cases. So that is something to keep in mind. If you are watching my review without having watched my show, keep in mind that this show has not a very slow start. It's still enjoyable, but it's nowhere near the classic that I feel it is becoming. As I watch the later parts of the Season 1, as well as the second season. However, despite that, I think it's absolutely mandatory to watch this show from beginning to end. I feel like there's just too many callbacks, and there's too much continuity not to watch the entire series from beginning to end. All in all, it's just an amazing experience, and I can see why many people consider this the greatest show in Cartoon Network history, despite that being such a bold claim. It is, in fact, one of my favorite cartoons, probably of all time, and definitely one of my, if not probably my favorite show that is currently airing that I am currently watching. However, like I said, for a final judgment on that, I will definitely wait until I watch Season 2. The other thing I do want to get into, I will quickly get into some of the things that, actually, I don't really know what I'm going to say. I feel like I've actually covered most of my bases in this, 10 minutes or so? Yeah, it looks like 9.5 minutes. I feel like there isn't much else that needs to be said. I'm not trying to generally go into specific things in episodes that I like, as I feel that my reactions cover those grounds, and I talk about the specific stuff happening in specific episodes, either during that episode or after I watch it, in my reaction videos to the first season of Steven Universe. So this is kind of just my general review of all the main characteristics of what makes a show good, and how Steven Universe pretty much nails it all around. I don't want to suck on the show's dick, but if I had to suck on a show's dick, Steven Universe is near the top of the line. I will admit that. I definitely see myself, really becoming a huge fan of the show after I, finish season 2 and actually kind of dive into the fandom and whatever, and just really, watch other reactions that people have to episodes of Steven Universe and just stuff like that. I think I'm really going to just fall in love with this show, as I personally feel that while I do have special bias to shows like RWBY and My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, this is probably the best American cartoon, if not the best American show running today. I don't know if I want to go as far to say American show, but it's gotta be in the discussion. Because I think of the few that would come to mind, and I don't know. Most of them I think are overrated, personally. But I'm not going to get into that, because that's not what this is about. Anyways, as you guys could tell, 2 thumbs up, no doubt. Very positive stuff to say. And I do want to thank you guys who were interested in this, short little soundbite on my thoughts on Steven Universe Season 1. And just generally, and it really was just me saying things that everyone already knows. This show is gorgeous. Oh, I actually did forget some. I will add this in at the end. Musically, this show is gorgeous. One of the best soundtracks I have heard in years. A very distinct soundtrack that makes you think that it is Steven Universe, and honestly feels like it belongs in a beautiful cinematic movie as opposed to a ongoing television series. Absolutely gorgeous. The use of instruments that you don't always necessarily hear in soundtracks for shows is very nice, and just in general, a killer soundtrack. Probably the first thing I fell in love with about Steven Universe was the soundtrack. In those earlier episodes where I wasn't a huge fan of Steven Universe yet, I fell in love from the soundtrack from the word go. The soundtrack was killer from the very beginning. And, I can't help but praise it quite a bit because it is gorgeous. Oh, so good. Okay, so now back to what I was saying, kind of a sort of an outro. I'm really happy for whoever watched this that they stuck around and actually listened to this little soundbite, just me giving some general thoughts on the show. And as a reward for that, I am going to let in on a little secret, unless, of course, you're watching this, later or whatever. But the little secret is that in 6 hours from the upload of this video, probably less from when you're watching, I'm going to be reacting to episodes 1 through 4 of Steven Universe Season 2. Yep, that's right. That's a big bomb that I'm just going to hide in here, and anyone who sees this is just going to be like, yeah, Steven Universe Season 2 reactions, oh my god! But, yeah, that's kind of my little surprise for anyone who actually decided to watch this review within the first, few hours of it being posted. Their reward is they get to know a couple hours ahead of time to expect that at my fairly normal upload time of noon PST, 3 p.m. EST, or 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean, I will be posting my Steven Universe Season 2 Episodes 1 through 4 reaction, which is awesome. So yeah, this has been the TheFlamingShark signing out. I hope you guys have a wonderful, fantastical day, and give me your thoughts on this review. I am really curious to hear your thoughts on the review. It was a very generic review, and I wanted to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, despite knowing that pretty much everyone watching will be spoilers, because I feel like if I talk about general stuff that actually, that makes the show good, instead of... Another thing about the show, actually, I keep thinking of more things as I keep trying to do my outro, is the show doesn't give a damn about what people think. It's gonna be who it is. It's gonna stay true to itself, and it doesn't care what others might think negatively of it, because it believes in itself, and that's why you guys all believe in it. Kind of sounds like me the more you think about it. And that kind of makes me really happy, because I know a lot of you guys believe in me and my channel through all the hardships I've had to go through with this channel. You know, the 15 copyright strikes, the multiple copyright takedowns, all that garbage, and how I keep fighting through it and come back better than ever. It's really cool. But yeah, that's not related to this review, but I really am curious what you guys think of this review, because I kept it in general, because I talk about all the stuff that literally happens in my reactions or my little recaps after I react to a specific episode. So I felt that there was no need to review the total, like, just a bunch of moments in the series, but rather the general overlying intrigue in the show and the things that it does really well, because it doesn't do much bad at all. Yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say. So, yeah. TheFlamingShark signing out. Hope you guys have a wonderful, fantastical day, and I hope I see you later today, or if you're watching this afterwards, it's not that funny. But for anyone who actually watched this within the first 6 hours of its upload, I hope I see you later for my Steven Universe Season 2 premiere reactions. Peace!